Hi, Yale Class of 2020, and welcome to our admitted student STEM virtual student forum. So over the course of the rest of the student forum, you're going to get to ask us real live Yale College students some questions about science, technology, engineering, math, and anything else you could want to know. So we'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Carly. I'm a senior here. I'm in Ezra Stiles College, the best residential college at Yale. I'm a mechanical engineering major. And I'm originally from Danbury, New Hampshire.
Hi, I'm Tobias. I'm a junior here in Trumbull College, which is actually the best residential college at Yale. I'm majoring in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology with a concentration in quantitative biology. And I'm particularly interested in reproductive biology. I'm originally from South Carolina.
Hi everybody, my name is Andrew Xiao Asamoah. I'm a freshman in Davenport College. I'm pre-med, but I'm currently undecided, and I hail from Buffalo, New York.
Okay, great. So like we said, over the course of this time, feel free to submit questions to us via the Facebook group and also under the Q&A section of this Google Hangout. All right.
So it looks like we have a question coming in about what it's like to be pre-med at Yale, and I'm pre-med or going for actually an MD PhD after I graduate, so I think I'll answer. One of my favorite things about being pre-med at Yale is that Yale actually doesn't make you sort of put yourself into a box of being someone who's interested in going to medical school, and you don't have to major in any particular subject to be pre-med. So even though I'm studying biology and focusing on sort of the scientific side of things, the way that Yale's curriculum is set up, every Yale student has about a third of their courses that they can take in whatever field they want. And so you could ostensibly major in something besides STEM and then use those leftover credits to take care of the pre-med requirements. Another thing I really like about the STEM community in general, but especially being pre-med, is that our academic environment is very collaborative and not competitive. I've heard some sort of students ask questions about being worried that only a certain number of students can go to med school or that students don't work together. And I would say 2 or 3 nights a week I'm in study hall or in a working session with dozens of other students who are pre-med, planning on going to medical school, and we all work on our assignments together. We help each other study for things like the MCAT. We also use the Health Professions Advising Office here at Yale that sort of helps students prepare for the application process. Standardized tests like the MCAT, they'll do one-on-one practice interviews with you. So I really feel that even though I am interested in both science and medicine, I'm able to satisfy both of those interests here with a lot of support from my peers and from the university as a whole.
And also coming from the freshman perspective, I definitely want to reiterate just how collaborative the nature of pre-med is here at Yale. I don't remember the last time I've ever done a PSET like by myself. I just call up my friends and we get together and we work together because there's no culture of like trying to get ahead of like other people or anything like that. We're all in it together, and you feel that as early as freshman year. So, oh yeah, Tobias, you got that.
All right, so we got another question about how easy it is to conduct research with professors at Yale. And I would say that I've actually stayed in New Haven for the past 2 summers, or last summer and this upcoming summer, to do research with faculty members who I've met either through classes or just by emailing them because I'm interested in their work. So the summer after my sophomore year, I participated in this really awesome program called Science, Technology, and Research Scholars at Yale, or STARS. And it basically gets students who are typically underrepresented in STEM, whether they're ethnic minorities, women, the physically disabled, or students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and they'll pair you up with a faculty mentor in your field of interest and give you a stipend, room and board to stay here in New Haven on campus and do research for the summer. I actually just found out that the project I worked on last summer with my mentor at the Yale Stem Cell Center is resulted in a paper that's being published, and I'll be named as a co-author on that paper, so my first scientific publication. It's really exciting. And that's just one of many ways you can get involved. That's more programmatic. All of the students who participated in that program live together on campus and really form this community of future researchers. But also, you know, if you take a course with a professor that you're interested in, for instance, right now I'm taking a laboratory course in reproductive biology, and I just talked to the professor after class one day and said, hey, I'm really interested in working with you and working on this project. And so I'll be working in his lab this summer in addition to that. I think maybe Carly has a few things to add.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tobias. Yeah, so one of my good friends is a geology and geophysics major here. He's loved that since high school. He knew he wanted to work on climate science at Yale. So when we got here freshman year and we met in a calculus class, we were study buddies for that. He told me he was interested in starting doing his research. So he got in touch with a professor. He was really interested in the kind of lab work that this professor was doing. So he shot him in, this must have been October of our freshman year, it's pretty early on. And the professor said, okay, let's meet and get coffee and talk about our interests. So the two of them met up, had a great time bonding over their, fun climate science stuff that, they were just so excited to talk to each other about this. And my friend Matt ended up leaving before, we went home for winter break. He ended up leaving with a paid research position in this lab. So I think, his story just goes to show that if you are interested in doing research as early as your freshman year, you're absolutely welcome to do that. A lot of students, like Tobias, might start the summer before their sophomore year. I mean, I had friends who started research, so it's really up to you, and I think that's the best part of research at Yale is as soon as you have the initiative, there's going to be faculty members who are willing to take you on and give you a really involved role in that lab. So there's a lot of opportunities here for research.
So looks like there's another question coming in about what the freshman experience is like for STEM majors at Yale and how we go about figuring out what we plan on majoring in. So I guess I can personally speak to this because I've had a very, I think it's refreshing in a sense that I was able to do other classes and what I expected I was going to be doing from the get-go. So usually at other schools, like there's a very set like first, second year curriculum, like this is what you have to take to major in this and that. But there's a lot of overlap in prerequisites for STEM majors here. So I didn't really have to decide on what STEM major I wanted to pursue as soon as I got here. So I decided I was going to reach out and do other classes as well. So last semester I was taking multivariable calculus for engineers because I plan on being a biomedical engineer. I also took my gen chemistry sequence first semester, but I also reached out and I took an English class called How to Be Real, and I learned a little bit about philosophy there, and I also took an intro microeconomics class. I found out that I really enjoyed intro microeconomics, which is why now I'm considering even majoring in economics and math and being pre-med as well. So I definitely have felt really positively affected by my ability to reach out from outside of my major and my prereqs and take other courses. So I think the most important thing about a liberal arts university like Yale is to try new things, and like that spirit can even translate within your academics. I think Tobias wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So like Andrew, my freshman year, I knew I came into Yale thinking that I wanted to study biology, but because it's a liberal arts university, I really had the opportunity to try courses in a lot of different areas. So my first year at Yale, I actually only took one course in biology and one course in math, and the rest of my classes were spread all over through Middle Eastern history, Arabic, linguistics, psychology, and even though I ended up deciding not to major in any of those things, now when I study biology, I know that my interest in it and my love for it is really tried and true because I've had the opportunity to test all the other subjects that I thought maybe I would want to major in. So even if your exploration outside of the STEM major that you think you're interested in doesn't lead you to change your major, it can really increase the love that you have for whatever it is that you end up studying. It looks like next we had a question about sort of introductory STEM classes, particularly the size of those classes, how many students are in them, and how you can get to know your professors. And I'll just say, I think overall at Yale, only about 2% of the courses here have more than 100 students in them, and I think 75% of classes have fewer than 30 students. And that is true in STEM as well. The average student-faculty ratio in STEM is actually 3 to 1. Obviously, not every class only has 3 students in it, but I think the biggest class I've taken in STEM was my introductory biology class, and that was just over 100 students. But we cycled through 4 different professors, and each of them actually made an effort to all of them have office hours and sort of the standard ways to interact with professors, but I think that they made a point of offering up lunch dates to get to know students who were interested in research or interested in pursuing biology further. I also took some introductory courses beyond that, so core courses that are required for my major that had 10 students with 3 professors, which is actually truly 3 to 1. So the access to professors is very real, and even in those larger courses where there are maybe 100 students or 50 to 100 students, you'll meet in discussion sections once a week with no more than 18 other students to sort of hash over the concepts that you've studied in lecture that week, or maybe explore an area of the field that is more interesting to you. So you do get the more personal interactions even in a bigger class. I think Andrew maybe, or Carly, not quite sure, wants to follow up on this.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to add about getting to know your professors even in larger classes. In my intro bio sequence, our professor actually has weekly lunches right after class where she takes a group of 10 to 11 students out to one of the residential colleges for a meal, and it's just a really organic way of getting to know them, and like feeling like you really know your professor even in like maybe the larger intro sequence classes. And for one of my bio professors, I got to know him really well. We just ran into each other on cross campus and we walked up to class together, and I got to hear about his research, about like trying to go to med school, like everything. It was really great, and I felt that it was really rewarding for me to get to know him in a more casual setting as well. I think next question's up for Carly.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so someone had a question about the connections between entrepreneurship and applied science research. So this semester I'm taking a brand new class. It's an engineering and applied science class called Making It, and it's about entrepreneurship and product design. And this was a really great course. It's really exciting that it's a brand new thing that that I'm getting to be a part of. And the goal is, in the first couple weeks of class, we built our own pair of Bluetooth headphones, which was super cool. The goal there was just get a handle on our mechanical skills, and make sure that we felt comfortable using all of the tools in the CEID, which little Yale lingo for you guys. CEID is the Center for Engineering, Innovation, and Design. It's a really great kind of a maker space where people from all across different disciplines together. But anyways, this class is taught in the CEID, and the goal is that by the end of the class, we will have modeled a viable business, a viable, desirable business, and come up with a really compelling product. So my group, for example, I'm working with 2 other students, and we're doing some kids STEM education product design. So right now we're trying to figure out a way to get young kids engaged in the building process, and we're doing that by, first of all, doing our own building experiments, trying to figure out how to make this kind of learning accessible to kids. Consumer research will be testing the local elementary school. So I guess it just
All right. It looks like maybe Carly's having a little bit of trouble with her mic, but I can follow up on what she was saying, particularly about entrepreneurship as it relates to science. So I'm not taking a course-based approach to entrepreneurship here at Yale. I haven't taken any design courses, but it's really easy to start your own business or to start getting hands-on experience with applied science and research. Actually, I'm part of this small venture that was started by a few students and a professor in my department, MCDB. Basically, the professor had this great idea that sprung from some of the research he was conducting, and because he's a full-time professor, he doesn't exactly have the time to build a business from the ground up. So he emailed all of the students in our department and said, who is interested in working on this project, building this business from the ground up, and learning a little bit more about what it's like to start a business in biotech. So me and these guys who've actually become some of my closest friends here at Yale sort of took this idea from the bench in the lab and have grown it into a business that's now making profits, and that's been a really, really meaningful experience for me. We actually have another question related to sort of how rigorous we find the curriculum within STEM and whether or not we still have time for extracurriculars or social lives. So that startup is just one example of something that you could do outside of the classroom, or that I do outside of the classroom that's very related to my schoolwork. But we definitely have time for activities outside of class that are organized through the form of extracurriculars, but also just to have normal social lives as college students. I'd say I only spend about half of my waking hours working on things related to the courses that I'm taking for my STEM major. I also work a couple of jobs on campus. I'm part of that biotech startup that I mentioned, and I plan our annual music festival, which is called Spring Fling. It's really dope. Check it out. Beyond that, I have served on the student council in my residential college. I've been on a couple of task forces for the Yale College Council or the YCC. And any given weekend, I'm hanging out with my friends from my college or who I've met in class. We'll go to other students' performances and plays, comedy shows, improv shows, a cappella concerts, all sorts of things. So there really are, you have plenty of time to engage with students outside of the classroom besides science-related extracurriculars. But maybe Carly and Andrew, each of you want to take turns talking about what you do outside of the classroom. That could be helpful because I'm just one person. So Andrew, you're up.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely speak to doing extracurriculars perhaps outside of my academic interests as well. I'm actually part of a startup called the Relief Group, which offers free consulting services for Nigerian entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector. And that's been super rewarding to me, even though it has little to no overlap with what I actually learned in class. I feel like I have a better understanding of how businesses are run, and how we are able to have international communication and dialogue with partners from all across the world, which is really exciting. On top of that, I'm also involved in the Yale College Council, so we work on bringing new policy to the table of the administration on behalf of the students, and we also help throw on events and endorsements and such like that. And I'm also a part of the Dwight Hall Socially Responsible Investment Group, a group that wants to promote socially responsible practices in large companies through shareholder engagement and divestment policies. So that's really really informative about how the world works, but also very powerful what we're able to do with that as well as Yale undergrads. Carly, do you have anything to add?
Maybe not. So while we're waiting on Carly to chime back in, I know she's involved with a wealth of other extracurriculars that neither Andrew nor I participate in. We got another question about sort of similarly, do you have time to do extracurriculars, but also do you have time to study abroad and still meet the requirements for a STEM major? So I personally have not studied abroad during the term, but I've been able to go abroad on some actually STEM-related trips each of the summers that I've been here. I went to Shanghai, China to teach a forum on bioethics and bioresearch, and I have lots of friends who've studied abroad during the term sort of within their own field of interest, especially students who are pre-med. They definitely have time to meet the requirements for their major and to meet all of the pre-medical requirements, and then even take a semester abroad. Many of them do sort of comparative health studies where they'll travel to multiple countries and examine their health systems and health disparities in places besides the U.S. One of my suite mates is actually studying abroad doing that right now. Very jealous. But there are lots of opportunities to talk about, or to, to travel for things related to STEM or for things totally not related to STEM. And I think Carly, if she's back with us now, could talk a little bit more about her experiences.
Great, yeah, I would love to talk about that, about my study abroad experiences. So I'm a mechanical engineering major, but I've actually been able to go abroad 2 times during my time at Yale. I went abroad after my freshman summer, and I actually completed an internship. I taught English in Brazil for the summer. I lived there with a host family for 6 weeks, and it was actually the first time I ever left the country, which was really exciting. And then the next summer, I studied abroad and was a student. I was taking foreign language courses for French in Paris. So I had done some of that here at Yale. I had taken a semester and I'd taken some in high school. And then I got to live in Paris for 8 weeks and study. And it was really great to be able to have
I think we might have lost Carly again, but I can definitely follow up a little bit about summer experiences. This summer I'm actually going to study Spanish in Bilbao, Spain, and also go to England and study classes there. So these opportunities aren't just limited to upperclassmen or aren't specifically during the school year. If you do have a lot of classes you need to take during the school year, you can definitely do things over the summer. And the way Yale promotes that and helps students do that is through the International Student Award, where Yale will give a certain amount of money to all the students on financial aid, and that'll help cover your summer expenses for any of the trips that you're planning to go for. So that's going to actually completely cover my trip to Spain, which is going to be awesome and free. So it's going to be great.
All right, so it looks like we have another question about what sort of internship and recruitment opportunities there are for STEM majors at Yale. And I can talk a little bit about that, although I think it looks like Carly's back with us, so she's closer to this process than I am. But for all students at Yale, including students in STEM, there's the Office of Career Strategy, or OCS, and also Undergraduate Career Services, UCS, which will work with students one-on-one to help you polish your resume, maybe choose courses that are tailored to a particular postgraduate profession. You can get information from them about places where Yale alumni are working these days, and they'll connect you with alumni who may be able to help you learn more about the companies they work for and whether or not you want to apply for jobs there. I know I haven't actually started really looking for postgraduate employment yet because I'm so sure that it's not going to be an issue and that these offices at Yale will help connect me with a job. But for summer internships, I've been able to browse through the Yale Alumni Network and find other students who graduated recently who are working for biotech startups all over the country and all over the world, pharmaceutical companies, or just academic research at other institutions that I've been interested in applying for. I've always decided to, because of the great funding, stay here at Yale for internship opportunities, like the one I mentioned via STARS, the STARS program, and other fellowships that will fund research here on campus, but there is recruitment for other opportunities as well. And I think Carly's going to chime in because she, like I said, as a senior, knows a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, thanks, Tobias, and hopefully I'll be able to get through a whole answer. We'll see how this part of the call holds up. But absolutely, I've been working really closely with the Office of Career Strategy, both my junior year, trying to find internships, and senior year looking for employment, and they have been so incredibly helpful with everything from walk-in meetings. They have special STEM resume reviewers who I've met with who know the industry well and have helped me prepare a resume. One of the coolest things they do is they do industry networking nights. So depending on what your major is and what kind of industry you want to go into, they'll often host these networking events at the CEID, and there'll be representatives from different companies, maybe a lot of local companies, some bigger name companies, but they'll come to the CEID, they'll send their recruitment staff, and you can go, bring a resume, network with other current students who are interested in the same things as you are, as well as these companies that are looking, to Yale for students to fill up their internship and post-grad job positions. And these are great because they're tailored to mechanical engineering interests or biomedical engineering, whatever it is you're interested in. There are also bigger companies that come to have recruitment events at Yale. So every year, SpaceX comes, Google comes, companies just know they have a strong relationship with Yale and want to come visit us and get to know the students here. So I think there's probably an event every week at the CEID going on with some company coming to talk to students. So it's been really exciting. All right, what's our next question?
Looks like our next question is going to be on how collaborative the problem sets are in STEM classes. Do students mostly work independently or together? So I can definitely speak to this. Last semester I took an engineering class in multivariable calculus and applications. And the teacher specifically created the culture of the class to be very collaborative. We had 2 study nights a week, and they were about 3 hours, where the teacher and his TAs would open up one of the rooms in one of our engineering buildings, and all the students would come in and work together. And even for the first few weeks when not many students knew each other, the professor would kind of set up a little bit of a very collaborative area and say hey, let's get everyone in here and talk about what your questions are, because I'm sure everyone else can really benefit from those. And naturally, study groups started to form. And I didn't really know many people in the engineering program at first, but by the end, I knew a lot of the members of my class very well, and the TAs very well as well. And for our problem sets, we were encouraged to collaborate. Specifically in the direction section, it said you should really like get a partner for these. So I would say that not only is collaboration like appropriate, it's encouraged in Yale STEM. I think Tobias wanted to follow up to that as well.
Yeah, so Andrew just talked a little bit about collaborating with fellow students on problem sets, but sometimes fellow students aren't enough. And I just wanted to talk about particularly my physics courses that I've taken over the past 2 semesters, and even organic chemistry, which I know is sometimes sort of an intimidating subject for people. We'll host study halls in a collaborative classroom, what we call the Teaching and Learning Center here at Yale. And students will gather around at round tables and work on the problem sets together, but with their professors and instructors there. And I actually have a physics professor who was once in study hall with us until 1 o'clock in the morning, helping students with their homework, because if we're going to be working on it for that long, he was there to help us for that long. And yeah, so you get great support from other students, and when that's not enough, the residential colleges all have science and quantitative reasoning peer tutors who are students who've taken the courses in the past who will help you out with them. And there are lots of resources to get support. All right. It looks like we have another question about computer science, and specifically what it's like to be in computer science at Yale and what sort of computer science program looks like here. And so none of us are computer science majors, but I can say that as a quantitative biology major, I've been just pretty surprised recently by how pervasive the computer science presence is as part of this interdisciplinary major. So even though I don't have a lot of experience with web development or coding, in 2 of the courses I'm taking right now, 2 biology courses that I'm taking, I've actually had to start learning how to code in MATLAB and how to code in Python or R to help sort of integrate those computer science methods for quantitative reasoning as it applies to biology, because you really start to realize that you need those skills and those sort of technologies for every field in the natural sciences. But beyond that, and more specifically about computer science, recently there was an announcement that the computer science department has been incorporated into the School of Engineering and Applied Science, and with that comes a massive expansion of Yale's computer science department. Lately, the School of Applied Science donated $20 million for the expansion of the department to expand faculty, and we've sort of talked a little bit about that. But yeah, there's going to be a new collaborative student technology center here on campus, and they're also renovating what is now our largest dining hall to be a more tech-based learning center, which would certainly include some aspects of computer science. So I do have several friends who are majoring in computer science. One of my suite mates actually came to Yale without having ever done any computer science, and through the introductory programming courses he took and then the upper-level courses he took as a sophomore, he got to the point where he was actually developing apps for businesses and startups as sort of a freelance web developer, and he took the past year off to travel the world and is just sort of from his phone and from his laptop earning enough with the skills he learned here at Yale to support his year of travel, which is really cool. I think maybe next we're going to head on to another question, but keep them coming.
Great. Okay, so we have a question about engineering projects outside of class. So yeah, students are really excited. You know, when you study engineering, it's because you want to have your hands on stuff and you want to be building stuff. So engineering students, you'll have them involved in projects outside of class. A lot of extracurricular groups founded around these interests. One of my favorites, which is a group of students that build a Formula One hybrid race car, pretty much up from scratch every year, and they race it in the competition. Yale team is awesome. You should definitely check out Yale Bulldogs Racing. I think they're really great. But you know, my friends love this group. They're super close, and they love the car they're working on. There's also the Yale Undergraduate Aerospace Association. Definitely check out their website. They're always on like 3 or 4 different projects every year. Also, the great thing about these groups,
All right, so again, looks like we've lost Carly, and we'll have to wait a bit to figure out what she was going to say was the next great thing about these extracurricular groups. But next, we'll switch over to a question that we got about how Yale STEM fits in with academics overall here on campus, and how much Yale focuses on STEM versus other subjects, why you should consider Yale, which seems to be more humanities-based in comparison to other more focused schools. So I'm going to throw that over to Andrew, and then I think I'll chime in after he weighs in on that.
For sure. So actually, one of the biggest reasons why I ended up matriculating to Yale was because of the very balanced respect that the university gives to both STEM and non-STEM. I think there's a common misconception that Yale is only humanities and is only strong in the humanities. I wouldn't say that's true. I would say that Yale is really good at interdisciplinary and collaborative efforts across all subjects and all disciplines, and the greatest way that's manifested is in our distributional requirements, or in the number of students who end up double majoring, or all the students who end up taking classes outside of the things that they came to the school for, and that's what really helps them to get a full humanistic worldview. And even though I know for sure I'm going to major in STEM here, I've really come to benefit from all the humanities classes I've either shopped or tried to take, or definitely am planning to take in the future. That English class I had mentioned earlier about how to be real really taught me how to think. And even though I was learning more of the quantitative applications in my math classes, I found my English class to be very difficult, but in a good way. It challenged me to think outside the box and find ways to defend what I was saying that I think will be super helpful for when I'm trying to present new products that I end up spearheading, or when I try to communicate a new idea that I found in research. There's so much interdisciplinarity in everything that we do here that I think we really benefit from having a school that's great in both. Tobias, you think you'd answer up the next?
Yeah, sure. So I think I agree with everything that Andrew said, particularly the interdisciplinary nature of things. I've been lucky enough that even though I am a STEM major, I didn't have to declare that major until the end of my sophomore year, so I had the opportunity to take lots of classes, like I mentioned earlier, that had nothing to do with STEM. But I've also been able to take a lot of courses that aren't strictly science or quantitative, but that it's great to sort of be able to take classes as someone who wants to be a doctor or a scientist. I could take classes in bioethics, for instance, which is political science or social science, but very important to the field for people who are interested in pursuing science or medicine. I took a great course my sophomore year that was actually taught to the public because it was so awesome on the evolution of beauty. So it was a mix of sort of art and evolutionary biology, and I think that's something that you can really only get when you're in a space where there are experts in both sides of, I think the whole arts versus STEM or humanities versus STEM dichotomy is a false dichotomy, and it doesn't really exist at Yale because so many students are trying their hands in both sides. So not only do STEM majors at Yale get to take courses in the humanities and learn about those sorts of things, but humanity majors here at Yale and arts majors, social science majors also learn a little bit about science while they're here. The last thing that I kind of wanted to add to that was that I think the distributional requirements and the total number of courses that are offered at Yale really helps keep our academic environment collaborative and not competitive. I went to a math and science magnet high school where everyone took the exact same courses for their junior and senior year, and it's really easy to compare yourself to others when you're doing the exact same thing. But here at Yale, I feel like even among all the other students who are majoring in biology, even those who are specifying that they're interested in quantitative biology, our sort of academic trajectory through Yale are all unique. And so it's really hard to compare myself to anyone else when my path through Yale has been my own and not anyone else's. I think Carly's going to chime in now.
All right, and I have a new connection, so I think I'll be able to stick around this time. Yeah, I think I would also like to echo something Tobias said earlier, which is that when you study STEM in a liberal arts setting, you really get to engage all of your different interests, and at the end of the day, that only makes you more passionate and more confident in your major. I know my freshman year, I spent some time really interested in psychology, and I actually thought about being a pre-med major myself. And even though I continued to do mechanical engineering, which is what I've been thinking since day one, it was really great to be able to take classes in all these different interests. Another thing is that I think this kind of environment really helps you organically find your interests. For example, I realized this year that I have taken 5 history classes while I've been at Yale. And if you had asked me when I was a senior in high school if I thought that would happen, I would think you're crazy. But because the liberal arts setting is here to, first of all, ensure that you take things, outside of just your major, that you're going to be, well-rounded and exploring these other interests. It doesn't make you do that in a certain kind of way. You just have to take 2 humanities or 2 social science courses, and you're certainly welcome to take more of that. So for me, it's been a great way to explore my other interests and really feel like a happy, well-rounded person. At the end of the day, I think that being at a liberal arts school has made me both a better engineer and also just a happier person.
Cool. So I just want to add on that even though we've all really benefited from the liberal arts structure of Yale and taking courses outside of STEM, the classes that we take in STEM are phenomenal. I mean, the professors that we work with, all the tenured professors at Yale teach undergraduates, and there are a number of Nobel Prize winners on our campus, Nobel laureates. Yale professors and scientists actually have the highest citation to publication ratio in the country, which means the research that they're doing is not only prolific and profound in and of itself, but it's also very useful to other scientists in the field. Oftentimes I'll be taking a course and we'll be assigned a primary research paper to learn about a particular aspect of cell biology or molecular biology. And when I look at the top of the paper, I see that the first author and the second author were in a laboratory here at Yale. I've taken 3 courses at Yale in STEM where the book that we use, the textbook that we use, was literally written by my professor. And so while we do benefit from taking lots of classes outside of STEM, the courses we take in science, technology, engineering, and math are out of this world as well. So we got another question about Yale for graduate school advising for STEM majors. And we talked a little bit earlier about pre-med. If you weren't able to catch that, we will be posting this video on YouTube, so you can check that out earlier in the video. But beyond just pre-med, the same offices will guide students who are interested in applying to professional schools like graduate schools for science, or even for graduate programs in engineering, or I mean, some students like to go to law school after undergrad. And so you have a wealth of resources available for one-on-one advising, sometimes through offices like the Office of Career Strategy or Undergraduate Career Services, but also just through the wonderful professors and other students that you'll meet here at Yale. So some of my best advice has come from talking to my professors about their experience going from undergrad to grad school, what sort of tips and advice they have for, one, just deciding if that's something that you're interested in, but then 2, taking the steps that you need to get there. There are also really, really great resources in terms of formalized advising. So everyone gets a freshman advisor their first year who's assigned by their residential college, and they're there to sort of help you think big picture about your academic goals for when you graduate from Yale. And then every year after that, you'll have an academic advisor in your department. So I've been lucky enough. I've had the same advisor since my freshman year, and she's just been incredible. When I thought I only wanted to go to medical school, she was great at giving me advice for preparing for that in terms of which courses I should take, what sort of opportunities I might want to get involved in outside of the classroom. Then when I decided that I also wanted to go to graduate school, she's been very, very, very helpful for helping me prepare for that too, because she is a research scientist here at Yale. She went to graduate school and she knows what it's all about. So I think Carly may have a little bit to add on.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my friends are also seniors, and we've been going through weighing the options about going to graduate school. And Tobias touched on this, but the opportunity for these kinds of informal advising relationships, I think, are incredibly valuable. One of the things that we mentioned is the really low the ratio between faculty and students. That allows students to develop really close relationships with their professors. And professors are really invested in their student success, which means when you're applying to graduate school, you're going to have someone who's going to write a really thoughtful letter of recommendation because they know you really well. And similarly, I know I've had friends who now have their graduate school acceptances and are trying to figure out where to go. And the faculty members that they're closest to have been an incredibly important part of that advising process. There are also a lot of other groups for this kind of advising. I'm in a group called Women in Science at Yale, which is a really great mentoring program, and it pairs an undergraduate with a graduate student to act as a mentor, help them with applying to grad school, research, things like that, getting fellowships, because they've been through it all before as a graduate student here at Yale. And it also pairs that graduate student with a postdoc. So it's kind of like these 3 tiers of mentorship. And that's something that's been really valuable for me as a senior, trying to figure out what options I have. It was great to have a woman in science who was a few years older than me, who had figured it all out before, and she's been a great resource. So to wrap up, I think just those kinds of informal relationships can, in addition to groups like the Office of Career Strategy, provide a lot of help and mentorship.
All right, so it looks like we have another question about STEM versus humanities, although, like we said, sort of a false dichotomy. And the question was, how intensive are STEM majors compared to humanities majors at Yale in terms of the number of required courses and the workload? And I think that's something that, it's really tough to answer. In terms of required courses, everyone at Yale has to take the same number of courses in order to graduate. How many of those fall into your major or not in your major really depends on what major you're choosing and what sort of track within your major you're choosing. So, for example, in engineering, you could go for a BA in engineering or a BS in engineering, or you could go for the ABET accredited degree, and each of those is sort of going to have more requirements that are associated with it. But I think in terms of requirements, my sense is that STEM majors pretty much have the same number of required courses for each those majors compared to humanities majors, but there are sometimes prerequisites that you need. So for instance, to major in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology, you only have about 9 or 10 required courses, but you do have to have the foundations of general chemistry, physics, biology, and a certain level of math to be able to take the courses that are relative to the field, or relevant to the field. In terms of how intensive they are, I mean, I think that you can think of required courses as one way of measuring intensity, but I know that even if, let's say, one of my suite mates is a film studies major, film and media studies, he only has 8 or 9 required courses with fewer prerequisites than I have, but the courses that he's taking require him to write screenplays and produce films each semester. He spends 4 to 6 hours every week watching films and critiquing them. So I think it's kind of apples and oranges. But the more that you learn from students who are majoring in the humanities or the social sciences, I think, at least in my experience, the more respect you come to have for those disciplines, and the more that you can appreciate your own studies. Because sometimes I come home and I think, wow, I really am glad that I'm not doing what you're doing. I'm really, really happy within the major that I've chosen. All right. I don't know if, yeah, it looks like no one else has anything to say about that. So we're going to wrap up by talking about what our biggest tip is for succeeding in STEM and making the most of your Yale experience. A very big question, and I think we're going to start with Andrew.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the most important piece of information that I kind of wish someone had straight up told me in the beginning, but I learned over time, was one of the most important things about being a STEM major is keeping an open mind. I think it's really easy at other universities to kind of like stick to your lane and do your own major and not really think outside the box or do anything you wouldn't really do. But I think at Yale, with like our over like 500 student groups and like over 2,000 classes, there's no reason to not kind of get a fuller breadth of like what the world has to offer academically and extracurricularly. So if that means like joining that like fencing club or like doing a class in philosophy, I would definitely encourage any STEM major to do that because all of those things just enrich our love of our subject and it helps us to do our job better. When it comes down to a professor or some kind of researcher who's trying to find a solution to a problem, they have to be able to really think outside the box and bring new solutions that no one's ever thought of. And the only way you can do that is if you've been like exposed to multiple different things from totally different fields and disciplines throughout your life. And I think that's what undergrad's like main purpose is. So I'll definitely say keep an open mind. I think, who's answering next?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. So something that I think is really important to remember is that none of you is going to be an island here at Yale, and being able to reach out for help is going to be an essential part of your success. I think all of us have talked about how important it has been to work both with other undergraduates in our classes as well as reaching out to professors for help. And I would really encourage students to realize that your professors are here for you and they're invested in your success. All professors are going to hold office hours on at least a weekly basis, and that's time when they're literally just sitting in their office waiting for undergrads in their classes to come in. Like, they actually just sit there. They just want to talk to you. And so that was something that I was rather intimidated to take advantage of during my freshman and sophomore years. And as I got older, I realized that those people were there for me, and it was silly to not reach out to them. That's what they're there for. So I started going to office hours, and I had professors who would sit down after a midterm exam. I would come in with my grade, and they would go through every single question, even the ones I got right, to make sure that I actually understood what we had gone through. And having that kind of support was hugely important to my success going on in my STEM career. So I would encourage you to realize that it's okay to reach out and ask for help. And there are so many people here willing to help you, whether that's getting a quantitative reasoning tutor for your math class freshman year, working with other people, or going directly to your professor, because you have so many structures of support here, and you should feel free and comfortable to lean on them. Tobias, you want to take a stab at this question?
Sure. So I think if I could give one tip for being successful at Yale, whatever that means, and approaching STEM, I would say to keep in mind that, and we sort of touched on this earlier with STEM and the humanities, but there are lots of things that will sort of present themselves as an opportunity to either do this or that. And I think that the students who feel the most successful at Yale sort of throw that out the window and say that you can do this and that, whether that means studying majoring in STEM and majoring in the humanities, or being a STEM major and being involved in theater productions. I say keep an eye out for opportunities and take them wherever you feel like you should. So many of the things I've been involved in at Yale, whether they're jobs or classes that I've taken or groups that I've joined, people I've met, have sort of just fallen into my lap. I mean, it rains opportunity here, and I would say just keep an open mind, like Andrew said, to sort of to challenge yourself when you think that there's something you can't do because you're doing something else, or something that you can't be because you're being something else, because everyone who comes through Yale chooses to do things their own way, and really, really, really does become a choice of and instead of a choice of or. I think Carly's going to send us home if that's good for you guys with a few reminders.
Great, thanks, Tobias. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thanks for joining us. We love answering your questions, and we invite you to keep asking more. So feel free to use the Class of 2020 page to ask any more questions. We'll be on there, and either your fellow prospective students might have some input. We're always happy to answer questions. You can always reach out to us. We also hope to see you on campus in person for Bulldog Days, which will be April 25th through April 27th. And it's going to be, first of all, a ton of fun, and second of all, a great opportunity to learn more about STEM here at Yale. There are going to be so many opportunities, like a research symposium, so you'll get to talk to a panel of students who have done research, professors who have undergrads in their labs. You'll get to sit on these great STEM classes and other classes in different areas that we've been talking about so much. You'll get to meet current students in the sciences, meet with student groups like the ones that we've all talked about. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure to register for Bulldog Days. We'd love to meet you. We hope to see you on campus soon, and stay in touch. All right, take care, everyone. Bula bula.